Welcome to The Confidence Curve with Ashley and Rick Bowers, where personal and professional journeys define the art of scaling with confidence. Whether you're a business leader navigating change or someone seeking personal growth, this podcast offers insights and actionable advice to help you thrive. Now let's dive into today's conversation with our incredible guest.
Welcome to The Confidence Curve. I'm Rick Bowers, and I'm excited to have our guest today, Caleb Marsh with Red Legend. And he's kind of that serial entrepreneur from a young age where he's kind of started and done a lot of different things, enjoys putting the different teams and things together to kind of get things done. So with that, welcome, Caleb.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
Excited to kind of dig into your story and kind of where you've kind of grown over the years and how the different events have shaped what your current business is. So maybe you could start with a little bit of background on Red Legend.
Yeah. So, Red Legend is a video production company. We serve businesses primarily in like the trades and contracting space. Okay. We got started in a way that dovetails nicely into what we focus on today. Like I tell the team, we are storytellers first, video second. So if we wake up and it's the year 1802 and our cameras stop charging, we show up to work and we do the same job. We just have to figure out different tools versus the videographer, which there are a lot of great storytellers out there. But if you're just a technician, your camera stops charging, you're out of a job. We started, I was actually 11 years old. I was an extra on a film set that shot up in northern Arizona. No one's ever seen what was made. It was History Channel. It was fine. But I fell in love with the process. I was like, okay, I don't care about being in front of the camera, and the output wasn't great, but they had a camera on a crane on a truck filming a horse. I was like, I'm going to do this when I grow up. Followed a production assistant around that whole day. He showed me a ton of things. I started getting on film sets. And then 16 years old, got hired with my good buddy that lived down the street to make a video, just a 1-minute video for a local school, private school, and they aired it in the movie theater up in Payson where I grew up. The local ads before the actual previews start. So we would buy movie tickets, show up 20 minutes early, watch our video, and leave. And that was a game changer for me because I always wanted to go Hollywood director, producer, like that's where storytelling lives. And then we got paid to tell a story. It took us half a day to shoot. And it was all of the same techniques, all of the same passion, and working with people that were actually making a difference, doing something that we thought was worth doing. So kind of clicked that we could, maybe do this for a living. And then we said, hey, let's start a business. How hard could that be? And 7 years later, here we are.
Okay, that's exciting. It's really cool that at such a young age, you were able to kind of like pinpoint exactly what it was that you wanted to do. And a lot of people struggle with that, whether they go through college and change their major a few times or they don't go to college because they're not sure what they want to do. But having that vision from such a young age it's awesome.
It was a blessing. I will say, I started my degree in software engineering and IT. Yeah. Because I was like, well, this film thing, there's no way I'm going to make money doing that. So I'm going to have a fallback in case it doesn't work. Learned early on in the business that having a fallback is a terrible idea. You gotta just be all in. Yeah. But that actually led to me starting another business that I own, which is a software development company. So I've got that skill set. I love that world. I just can't write code for 8 hours a day. Yeah, I'd go nuts.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing that either. So you had an interesting internship as you were coming up in the ranks?
Yeah, I spent a year over in Dubai. First interned at a data analytics company that was mind-numbing. Yeah. And then my boss there took mercy on me and connected me with a friend who ran a production company. And they did ads for Emirates Airlines and big name productions. And that just cemented the idea of all of the stuff that we love to do with telling stories, we can do for businesses and we don't have to compromise on storytelling to do corporate video.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I had the chance to go to Dubai when I was with TTI and early 2000s. It's a really interesting place.
Cool city.
And other than the business aspect of it, I think my highlight was getting to ski in the indoor ski slope, which was pretty cool.
Yep, Mall of the Emirates. Spent a lot of time there.
In our first conversation, we spent a lot of time talking about the word story or defining a story. So let's dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. About 2 years ago, a buddy of mine asked me a question that I should have known the answer for, and I didn't, and it bothered me. And he does web design, super good at his job. I do video. We send each other a lot of work. And he said, "Hey, Caleb, you're a storyteller, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, like I'm a professional. I get paid for it. I've won awards for it. We're good at storytelling." And he was like, "Awesome. What's a story?" And I said, "Let me get back to you on that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know." So I went and I asked a dozen plus of my filmmaker friends, people with like professional storyteller in their bio. And they said, "Oh, story is like storytelling, like maybe, beginning, middle, end, which is the structure of a story, but there's a lot of things that have a beginning, middle, and end that aren't a story." Didn't get a single good definition. Bothered the crap out of me. And so I went on a deep dive researching what is a story, trying to understand the philosophy of storytelling, like the way to think about story at a fundamental level, universal, because that is going to unlock all of the applications. I know for a fact that in the business world, we are not using storytelling the way that we could and should. And there are a lot of great frameworks out there.
Yeah.
And they tend to be these sort of top-down approaches of like, story brand, Donald Miller, that's the perfect one. It's genius. It's great. It works incredibly well. If you go all in, the certification's worth it. Like, it's a good system. And it's top down, and it's one structure that's applied multiple different ways. And it doesn't truly answer the question, what is a story? Like, what's the universal definition? And I'm open to feedback on this because it's still fairly fresh, a year or two old. But the definition we found that really works well is a story has three pieces. It's got a character, a journey, and a transformation. The problem we fall into as storytellers, especially in our industry, is we focus on the character. Because you got a character that goes through this journey, and at the end they reach this transformation. So we start with the character, which makes sense. You and I are characters. We are human beings, and we are on journeys. And in our story, like our life story, we have not yet reached our final transformation. Right. We're still alive. So we think character journey, it's very intuitive to us. The interesting bit when you're telling a story is the transformation. And people know this, like it intuitively makes sense. It's kind of the way we structure stories. It's not a groundbreaking definition. Yeah. The problem is, if you start with the character, you haphazardly end up at a transformation, and that's the part that matters. What we found is when we're telling a story for business, we start with the transformation and reverse engineer the character and the journey that get us there. And all of a sudden, when we are telling a story, whether it's on video or we're just advising in there, writing it or speaking it, or it's in a conversation, that story becomes shorter, more concise, and way more effective, like doubly effective in some of the case studies that we've seen, just by focusing on telling a cohesive story, understanding the transformation you're going to, and not bringing in superfluous fluff that feels good to talk about, but isn't the point. So that character journey transformation model completely changed the way that we approach video. Sort of. Like it changed the way we thought about it. Like intuitively, we were good at storytelling, so the videos didn't look that much different. The structure wasn't that different, but we understood it. We knew why we were doing what we were doing. And that was powerful.
So some of the impact that you get is being able to get to the point, for lack of better words, sooner with your stories and make that impact so that the transformation can happen. Is that one way to say it?
Yeah, and it's sooner and it's more intentionally.
Okay.
Because we want to take the viewer on a journey, right? They are a character, and you want to transform their mindset. If you are a business, you're in the job of changing people's minds. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
Or digging a trench.
Yeah.
But for any sort of marketing, sales, operation, leadership, like your job is to change people's minds, and you're not just going to tell them the transformation that you want, and they're going to flip. Yeah. So you have to treat them like a character and take them on a journey, which means you may need to tell multiple stories to make them feel heard and understood, and then willing to listen, and then listen, then understand how to apply it. Like there's a lot of psychology that isn't storytelling that story supports.
It was interesting. Yesterday I did a communication workshop for a cohort that was going through a leadership process. And one of the people sitting next to the person next to her, she's like, I understand the details, but I like to tell the stories. And she's like, my husband will say, well, what are the facts? And she's like, well, I'm getting to that, but listen to my story. And then the next person was like, but I just like bullet points. And so people like to communicate in very different ways, but that storytelling is such a powerful process. How can businesses get more out of the story?
The first thing is to first understand what a story is, and start looking for transformations. That's the biggest thing. If you go out in the world and you look for transformations and then think, who is the character and what journey did they go on to get to the transformation that people care about? That alone, you're now a 10 times better storyteller, as opposed to the intuitive, my grandma Betty one time, which character journey transformation, it's all there. That's the way it's structured. We're just not taking advantage of it. I would say for businesses, break it down further. There's really 3 buckets that your stories are going to fall into. The first is company, second is product or process, service, and the third is customer.
Okay.
So what that means is you've got stories about the company and the people in the company, and the core values fall into that. Like, how do we apply our core values in the real world? That's a great story to tell. Not just like, here's our core value, but here's what it means. We had a fork in the road. Character on a journey had this obstacle, and here's the transformation we reached. That's a core value applied. That's a type of story. So the company stories are about the company and the people inside the company. The product or service or process story is about the thing that you make, the thing that you offer. You ever watch the show How It's Made? Great show. Grew up on it. You'll sit there for 20 minutes and you'll start with just some block of plastic and you'll end up with an empty water bottle. These are 2 of the most mundane, boring, everyday objects, and yet you just spent 20 minutes of your life that you'll never get back glued to the TV because there was a character on a journey that reached a transformation. Like, that show is masterful at storytelling about a product, a widget. So you've got that's the product or the service story, and we work with a ton of service-based businesses. They have stories about here's how we diagnose and change a HVAC part, whatever. Then there's the customer stories. These are insanely powerful, but they're not the only story you should be telling. You should typically lead as a business with the customer story if you're trying to attract customers. Customer stories, we think like customer testimonial, especially on the video front. Everyone wants customer testimonials. It's a really powerful type of story. But there's other ones. There's the customer referral, which is not, hey, I'm Joe and here's why I bought from this company. It's, hey, I'm Joe and here's why I sent my grandma to buy from this company. If you're trying to build trust, that is a powerful story to tell. If Joe trusted his grandma, I can trust him myself. It's like the customer referral story. There's the community impact story, which is, we'll take that HVAC example. They are HVAC company does work for a school. You could get the customer testimonial principal saying, they saved our behinds and whatever. You could get the referral story, which is, however they got connected in there. Or you could say, here's a kid and here's their life. And here's how much this school means to them. And here's how their life was impacted by being able to show up at school on a hot 118-degree day in May because of this HVAC company. And here's how that affected them and their family. That's the community impact story, and it falls under that customer story bucket. But there's so many types of stories that people don't even think to tell. They just go, customer testimonial, or I'll tell how the company started, or I'll show you how it's done. But there's a lot more nuance that could be found there.
And it really helps the potential customers or existing customers relate to the organization, because once you get that connection with the customer, it's more likely that they're going to stick with you, even if a cheaper brand or a cheaper option comes down the line, because they have that connection.
Yep. When you're telling those three types of stories, here's what they do to people. You've got the company story, which says, I like these people. I could see myself working with them. You got the product or the service story, which is they know what they're doing. I trust them to perform the work, or I trust their thing they manufacture. And the customer story says, hey, they changed someone else's life. I could see them changing mine. You got to tell all three of those together. If you do that, you are now harnessing storytelling in a very analytical, cold way, but it works incredibly well.
Yeah. So when we had a conversation the other day, and Ashley was involved, we talked a little bit about how storytelling is a little bit like building that strategy for the business's future, where you have kind of where you're at, how you're going to get there, what you want to accomplish and things. So how do you see storytelling as part of building a winning strategy for the company?
So there's actually our system that we built, call it Story Lab, has 27 different types of stories that we tell. What you just talked about there is the vision for the future story. That is a very useful story to tell first as an entrepreneur, especially if you're small, to yourself. You got to buy into that, and you got to write it down. You got to remind yourself of it, sometimes multiple times a day, through the tears, through the blood and sweat. Like you talk about mindset. All that is telling yourself a story that you believe in, even when it's hard to believe in it. Then you tell that to your key stakeholders, leaders, partners, vendors, clients, the world, like talking about that vision for the future. That is the strategy. Like a business strategy, a business plan is just that vision for the future broken out into a lot of numbers. It's just a story at the end of the day.
Yeah. But it's powerful, because that's one of the things that we do at Apex is we try to make sure that the vision of the organization and the people are connected, so that those people are really driving that vision forward. They're not just doing a job wondering how their work is really impacting the organization. People want to be part of something bigger, and people struggle with what are the right ways to tell the story. So it can be just internal communication where it's powerful. What you do is powerful as well.
Think about it this way. If you've got like mission and vision, which vision is what I want the world to look like, mission is what we're going to do every day to get there. You probably do a lot of work with people on mission and vision. It's incredibly important. Imagine having a mission with no vision. That's a journey with no transformation. It's like we're gonna do all this hard work. And they just end it there. No, we're going to do all this hard work, and it's going to get us to this transformation. We're going to literally change the world. Well, now you got a story. That transformation is everything.
I think it was in a Patrick Lencioni book or something. It's like starting out your journey where you go to the corner, you turn right, you go to the next corner, you turn right, you go to the next corner, you turn right, and you just keep repeating that process. Well, you haven't done anything but go around the block. And so you really have to understand where the entire journey is taking you, because otherwise you're just turning right. And you don't ever get to that end destination that you want to get to. So how does a company know when they're ready for your services?
We've got monetary minimums, but they're not much. We generally work with companies in the trade space, call it 2 to 50 million in revenue, or divisions inside of larger companies that are doing that. In professional services, if the margins are higher, as low as about $1 million in revenue. What I will say is this: if you are in business, in leadership, in sales, or in marketing, then, or if you're a human being, start using stories immediately. It just makes life easier if you understand how to tell a story to change people's minds. And it kind of sounds evil, right? Oh, I'm going to manipulate people and change their minds. But no, you're trying to get work done, and you need people to help you to get there, and you need to build a team. And whether you're leading up or down the chain of command or lateral, use stories to help people understand where you're trying to go and how it benefits them. Talk about their transformation.
Yeah, and it comes down to communication. Whether you're a salesperson, you're an accountant, you're leading a company, it's all about communication and how clearly are you getting your point across? How clearly do you set the expectations for somebody? Mm-hmm. Even if you're delegating something, it's like you can't just say paint the wall because it's like, okay, which wall? What color? Mm-hmm. I mean, what sheen? All of these things. So you have to be very specific in this process. So. What have you done in terms of building your own company, Red Legend? What have you done from a standpoint of using videos to maybe inspire the team?
Yeah, I will say this. These cobblers' kids have minimal shoes.
Okay.
We put a lot of energy into other people's companies and not enough into our own. Okay. We're actually making a hire in probably 2 weeks that's going to free up a ton of time, and that person is going to spend 1 day a week making internal content.
Okay.
We use a lot of storytelling. Okay. Video it's expensive. Mm-hmm. It's definitely expensive to do well. It's also expensive to do poorly, and it takes a lot of work. But the story is the important part. Mm-hmm. So we do a lot of internal storytelling of. Actually, let me pull up a resource here. Our back-end database of all the different types of stories, which no, you cannot see on camera. Spent a couple years building that IP. So some of the stories that we'll tell internally are, we'll talk a lot about our core values in action. Okay. I mentioned that one earlier. Here's what core values look like in the real world. Whether I'm telling a story about, hey, here's what we did last week that was either good or bad, or here's something that I see coming up. I know we have this one client coming in. We've worked with them before, and they're going to throw this challenge at us, and then I'll put it back on the team. Tell me a story about how you're going to use the core values in action in XYZ situation. Milestones and achievements are a really good one. Those are simple stories to tell. Okay. Hey, we started here and we did this. Every July 9th, we turn a year older as a company. That's a simple story to tell. Vision for the future is a big one. That's one of our powerhouse stories. And then we'll talk about innovation and quality, okay. Which is telling a story about how there are challenges out there that require us to step up the game and make new things. Mm-hmm. So sharing what we did, sharing what we want to do, and then customer testimonials and customer experience improvement are two really big ones. The customer experience improvement is used for a negative situation. Something went wrong. Here's what we did to make it more righter. Okay. Or the customer transformation, or even a customer testimonial. Yeah. Whenever we have reviews that come in, talk about that to the team. Don't just send the review out like, hey, we got this new Google review. Congrats, guys. Yeah. But if they don't know the details of the project, have whoever ran that project write up a little piece about it, or get on video for 30 seconds, or talk to the team in your weekly meeting, and tell a story. And you can outline, here's how to tell a story, right? Here's how to set up the characters. Here's how to talk about the journey. And then for the transformation, here's how to talk about it. Okay. That's a powerful story that you're probably not going to put on video. Realistically, you want a real-time conversation that takes 1 minute in, like we run on EOS. Like I'd put it in our L10s. Yeah. I'd add a section. Yeah, we'll break the EOS rules, add a 1 minute section to tell those stories. Mm-hmm. They actually have a section for it, but like that's powerful.
Yeah. Rules are meant to be broken.
Heck yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned there were core values. And so many companies, they write their core values, they put them in the employee handbook, and they hang them on a poster on the wall, and then they don't ever use them again. Yeah. And it's such a powerful tool if you really take the time to do the core values right and really make sure that this is what everybody is living by. It ties to the culture. It ties to all of these things. Mm-hmm. You're hiring and you're firing based on your core values and those kinds of things. So with video or with storytelling, how do you make the core values come to life?
So our structure is
Okay.
this, and it's nice to have done all the work to to lay this out. So the basics of a core value story are first, you may want to establish like what are our core values and what is this core value, and then just explain it. Like we have 5 core values. I've written short paragraph descriptions of each one, so it's not just a word; it means something. Then most stories are going to follow some sort of like problem, plan, action,
Okay.
result format with your characters' journeys and then the transformation baked into that result. So talk about when a core value need was felt. Like, hey, when did we need to apply a core value, which is just a decision-making metric when we reach a fork in the road. So what was the need? What was the problem, the situation? Talk to me about what, when, where, why, how.
Yeah.
So you set up this problem and then talk about the consequences of doing it poorly. That's great because that gives stakes.
Yeah.
Now people are bought in. Oh no, are they going to mess up? We could lose a client or look like idiots, or like something could go wrong if we don't apply this well. Then talk about the choice you made and the thought process behind that choice. And then you want to talk about the change. So this is your transformation. There are 4 main characters in this core value story, which is you got the leader, the team, the industry, and the customer. Talk about how it made a change in the leader to to see this core value applied well. Probably changed an emotional state for them. They went from worried to not worried. Talk about how it created a change in the team. Maybe they went from lack of clarity on this issue to extreme clarity on the issue, or lack of confidence to extreme confidence. So there's a transformation created in the team, a change created in the industry. Not every story is going to have one of these, but you can either talk about how now this is how we set ourselves apart from the industry, or this is how we made the industry better. And then a change created in the world or for the clients, which is that's the external change. But there's all this internal change that happens in this type of story of applying the core values that you also want to bring out, because that makes it real to every character involved.
So can you think of an organization or a situation where it made like a significant impact for the company?
Core values, or
No, just your storytelling and the video process that you do.
Yeah. So I mean, we have a client. They do window installation, and we gave them an ad that just focused on a very simple story, focused on the customer story instead of talking about the company story. Company story is a great story to tell, but it's not the right story to tell if you're on like a brand awareness piece. And I need to check in with them to see how it's going now, but I know overnight their conversion rates went up significantly, 50 to 80%, just by running this ad with a good story. I will say this: there's one of my favorite videos we've ever made is seen by, I don't know, maybe 100 people a year. It's not a very highly viewed video, but it's for a niche manufacturing company that sells into a very, very niche market with incredibly expensive pieces of equipment. And these guys are brilliant engineers, made this product that outperforms like 10x whatever's in the industry. And so they're engineers, and they're selling into engineers in like the mining and energy space. And they talked about a lot of features and they were having trouble selling it. And so now they're on track to do millions in sales because of one 58-second video. That's all it took to tell a very simple story of, hey, this product makes life easier for, I don't know, there's like 300 people in the world who are their target customer.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And you're talking millions of dollars of impact by telling a good story.
Yeah.
It took work to craft it.
Oh, for sure. It sounds a little like some of the Simon Sinek stuff. The start with why,
Yeah.
which I read years ago. I'm currently listening to Find Your Why, which is kind of helping people understand what is their purpose or what is their why and what drives them. And it's an interesting thing. And there's some similarities in what you do, because it's kind of, you have to fill in the blanks and then expand out. And it's really all about the stories in a person's life that you can kind of utilize to find that. And so it's been an interesting to listen to, of like even some of the stuff on the way here, like drawing a horizontal line on a piece of paper and then just talking through stories, and the positive ones go above the line, the negative ones that still impacted your life go below, but they still could be significant in understanding what the purpose is for the person, which could be for the organization as well.
Yeah. I think one of the dangers of storytelling is that it gets really big really fast. Because we are surrounded by story. It's built into us. We are built into it. Like, you can't get away from story, which is, I think, why it's hard to define it, because we're so just wrapped up in it. And part of my passion is to create structures and start to organize this mass amount of data that's out there about stories and types of stories and who can tell them and where are they used. Because, I mean, what you just described, you could use that tool in therapy. It's not a space we're touching. But that's a space where story lives and story is. You can't avoid it. So there's a ton of work to be done on developing story in all these areas.
So what's next for Red Legend? What do the next 5 or 10 years look like? What does that story look like?
It's a good question. We've got pretty aggressive growth plans. Spend the next 2.5 actually now years taking over Phoenix. We've got probably 4x that we want to hit there. We're meeting next Monday to redo our 10-year and 3-year and 1 year. So I can get back to you then.
Yeah.
But 4 to 5x in the next 3 years. And then start going into other markets in the U.S. We've got a great system for how to tell a story. It makes video production way more efficient. Like, we're currently in the middle of building software because I've got that asset that I can use that makes your average videographer twice as good and twice as fast. Twice as good meaning their stuff performs better. Twice as fast meaning we help plan out all the stories, all the questions to ask in an interview, how to write all the scripts, and how to edit all the videos. And there's, you bet, a lot of AI acceleration there, but AI can't tell a story. We rely on the human storytelling. We rely on the science of how stories are structured and the philosophy of what it means to tell a story, and then have AI crunch a bunch of data and make videographers way better at what they're doing. So we'll be rolling out software that does that. And then our top users are targets for acquisition in other states.
Okay. That's exciting.
That's the master plan.
Yeah. Okay. So one more question. What is the favorite video you've ever created, and can our listeners find it online somewhere?
Gotta say, so I'm a sucker for comedic ads.
Okay.
And we've got plenty of those on our website. My favorite, though, is, at least currently as of April 10th, 2025, the main video on our homepage. If you scroll down like one section, it's an ad for a body armor company, locally based, and it's my favorite for a couple of reasons. One, there is a lot of purpose and intention behind the message. It's a lot bigger than the product that they're selling. That matters. Like, we want to work with companies that care about something bigger. They care about changing the world. This company definitely falls into that bucket. So we got to shoot across 4 different days in 4 or 5 locations. It was a beast of a shoot. I had just hired an editor, and I made him drive 3 hours off-road, and then he got stuck. So he still gives me grief about that. So good experience, and I think the final product we ended up with was highly effective, and got a lot of people excited about the company.
Yeah.
To me, that's a win. If we get a viewer excited about the prospect of working with my client, we have done the client a much bigger service than help them sell more stuff.
Yeah.
We've now created a raving fan, and they haven't even interacted with the company. They just saw one video.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate your time today. I'm looking forward to continuing our conversations offline, obviously, but and see where Red Legend goes and how we can help you along the way. Where can people get a hold of you if they want to do some storytelling?
Yeah, I appreciate it. So we're on Instagram and Facebook, Red Legend Media, REDD Legend, or redlegend.com, REDD legend.com. That's us.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks for tuning in to The Confidence Curve. We hope today's episode left you inspired and ready to embrace your journey confidently. Remember, whether you're leading a team, growing your business, or pursuing personal growth, each step forward builds your curve. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. For more insights and resources, visit us at apexgts.com. Until next time, keep climbing the curve.